Let's concentrate on Tottenham, shall we? Because it's all changed there. Thomas Frank is the new head coach, and there is now talk, as you were hearing there, of Bryan Mbeumo perhaps joining him in North London too. Joining us then to look ahead to this new season of this new management, it's part of the Spurs Chat Pod, Chris Cowlin. Chris, good morning. How are you?
Hi, Chris.
Natalie, Tony, good morning to you.
Great to have you with us. Thank you very much for joining us. I suppose first things first, what do you make of the fact that your club has appointed Thomas Frank?
Well, the fan base, of course, is very mixed. I can't speak for the whole fan base because, the amount of decisions that, have been made over the number of years. And, this is the 18th different manager in 24 years. So but it's been a mad couple of years under Postecoglou. Of course, it ended with success, which I'm so glad about because he said that he was going to win in his second season. But I feel like this could be a very, very sensible appointment for Spurs, a very progressive manager, as the club statement said. And I completely agree with that. I feel like Thomas Frank deserves the opportunity as well for the great work that he's done at Brentford. And I feel like it's going to be a very safe and sensible appointment for Tottenham. And I feel like Thomas Frank is going to bring that calmness to Spurs, which I feel like we desperately need.
From the outside, Chris, we all know the strengths of Thomas Frank. It's I think, year by year, improving a squad. Have many different ways of playing, by the way. They just won't play one set way and go, this is our, Ange ball or Thomas Frank ball, whatever we want to call it, Thomas ball. I've always admired him from the outside of that. Over the 7 years he's had at Brentford, he's reinvented Brentford in many different ways because they've lost personnel, big signings to other clubs, and still put together a side that can compete and improve on their league position.
Absolutely right, Tony. And I saw a stat the other day that Brentford, in the 4 years that they've been in the Premier League, have never sat in a relegation zone. Given that he has all of these players, he improves players year after year. You take these players out of the squad. The season before last, I think they had 21 injuries, 11 surgeries, Tony suspended, and they were still nowhere near the relegation zone. So he seems to get the best out of players. And as you mentioned there, tactical flexibility, which we haven't really seen from Postecoglou. Ange always said that, this is the way that we play and that's it, get used to it. We're not changing. And I feel like a lot of Spurs fans are very excited about that, that flexibility within games and, whoever you are playing. So, but I think that is absolutely key because Spurs do have a good squad. And I feel like he's going to get the best out of some of these players. I feel like he's going to give the youth an opportunity because, of course, he's managed at youth level, as have a lot of his coaches as well. So I feel like there are a number of pluses. I know there are a lot of people still angry and upset that Postecoglou has gone out the door having delivered European success. But this is the time now we need to get behind the manager because I don't feel like we are far away. In the next 2.5 months, we've got a transfer window. And I feel like Thomas Frank needs to be heavily a part of those decisions of the players coming in because, Brentford identified a number of really good players. And as you mentioned, players go out the door. They seem to replace these players with, good quality players and very hard-working players. Brentford players are often unsung heroes. They work extremely hard for the manager.
Yeah, that is certainly the case. I mean, one thing as well, which is interesting, is before Tottenham had signed Archie Gray and Brennan Johnson, Brentford were looking to bring those two players in particular into their club. So Thomas Frank already has identified those two players as two that he wanted to work with. So that's a bonus in itself. And then there's Bryan Mbeumo now linked with a potential move, with Thomas Frank looking to persuade him to move to North London as well. Would you welcome Mbeumo at Spurs?
Absolutely, Natalie. I'll tell you, this transfer window is going to be absolutely key for the future of this football club. We've gone around in circles, gone through different managers, but I feel like a number of the managers haven't quite got what they wanted in past transfer windows. And I feel like Spurs have always been a couple of players away. But with the amount of injuries that we had last season and with the, us playing Champions League football for next season, I feel like we need real strength and quality. And Mbeumo would definitely bring that. The amount of goals involvements last season for Brentford was simply incredible. And I feel like in this Spurs team, he could be a real threat and he could be a fantastic player for us.
Which is why I think, obviously, moving alongside his head coach at Brentford would make more sense because he knows how to work with him. Frank knows how to get the best out of him. And also you imagine that Frank will line up in a way that would suit Bryan Mbeumo, which I'm not sure Manchester United necessarily would line up in the same way to suit Mbeumo too.
They generally play a different formation.
Yeah,
so
that's what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
I mean, play to the strength
I can't remember, and Chris might know better than me on this one. I can't remember if this happened. A player that turned down Man United to go to Spurs. It's always Spurs would be selling their players to Manchester United, moving on, and that
the game's changed.
No, I know, but that would be a massive statement if a player goes, do you know what? I'm not going to go to one of the biggest clubs, if not the biggest club in the country, and go to Spurs.
The thing is, Tony, I'm told now, which upsets me as a fan, that it's all about the money. Whoever offers the most money, that's where the footballer goes. But, we've got Champions League football for next season, and I feel like Spurs really need to have that strength and depth. So a player like Mbeumo to play Champions League football, and stay in London, because that is a real pull. Players love to be in London. So, to work under the manager again, under an exciting project, because it should be an exciting project. And let's not get away from, Ange Postecoglou started this project 2 years ago. And I feel like this is just a minor reset rather than a major reset for the club. So, I feel like Thomas Frank can pick up, add a few real quality players, but I cannot stress that enough. Of the depth in the squad needs to be absolutely top notch, especially playing Champions League football. And let's face it as well, pre-season, Thomas Frank needs to get off to a good start, because the Tottenham fan base are very hard to please. PSG in the Super Cup.
Well, I was just about to say, there's no better game, is there?
Exactly. Yeah,
that is some
I know
test.
We're going to be playing Luton and Arsenal in Hong Kong, so there's some tough games there.
Yeah, there certainly is. Look, he had nearly 7 years at Brentford. You can't imagine any manager really will see. There are a few, the Harrogate Town manager, whose name escapes me, Simon Weaver, is it? He's been in position for a long, long time, but there aren't many managers these days that last that sort of length of time.
No, there's not. And one thing I really like about him, and not many people have spoke about, is that he seems to be a great communicator with his owner, also likewise with his players and the staff, and I just think his reaction with the fans as well, I think he sort of brings it all together as a club.
He's a great figurehead.
Yeah, and that's, you might say, well, this could be a much tougher ask with Daniel Levy, because that hasn't quite been the case, has it?
I feel like, Tony, that like I said earlier, that calmness that he can bring to Spurs, because it has been crazy, this last 10 years or so, particularly since 2019, that Champions League final of Pochettino going out the door. We're about to have the 8th different manager since 2019. We cannot keep going round in circles and, keep appointing manager after manager after manager. There are some fans very sceptical about this, because they're saying, well, what's going to change? Will Thomas Frank be leaving the football club in a couple of years? But I feel like this backing, at board level, the club need to get behind the manager. We need some stability. But Natalie, can I ask you, as a Brentford fan, how would you feel about if we took in Mbeumo as well as Thomas Frank?
You're just adding
the black veil will be on.
Do you know what? I feel like it's like Murder on the Orient Express. Everyone has it in for me. That's what it feels like. It's like et tu, Brute, et tu. That's what it feels like. Listen, we already accepted that Brian was going to be leaving. He's had such an incredible career for us, and I think most Brentford fans will understand that he wants to move on. It feels a little bit weird that he could go to Tottenham, and to see him lining up alongside Thomas Frank will be very odd, especially when they come to town. But look, I wish him the very best of luck.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
Chris, would you be happy to take Matthew Benham instead of Daniel Levy?
Look,
it's
I'll
different.
tell you what.
It's different.
There's a shake-up at board level at the moment, and I feel like there's a lot of staff changing. A lot of staff going out the door, coming in the door. I feel like if the ownership is not going to change, we certainly need to do things in a different way.
Yeah.
Because like I said, 18 managers in 24 years. We've been very close with some managers, in particular Pochettino, of getting over that line. We've always been a couple of players short, but like I say again, I can't stress enough, Champions League football, the amount of injuries that we had last year under Postecoglou, that needs to be addressed. And, the club needs to learn from previous mistakes, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Before you go, Chris, I've noticed that medal behind you. Now, is that an original? That's not an original, can it? I mean, what?
Of course not.
I was going to say, I didn't know if someone had given it to you or something. Like,
it's just a replica. It's just a replica. But of course, the trophies have been way overdue. So I feel like every Spurs fan have taken the opportunity to go out and purchase a replica because
I love it.
At least I haven't got it around my neck this morning. But we're very
the full kit as well.
We're very proud to be the Europa League winners. So don't come along every year. But we want success because that trophy parade was just simply incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, listen, Chris, we appreciate you joining us this early morning. Thank you.
Cheers, Chris.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
You too. So, yes, Thomas Frank confirmed as the new Spurs head coach. And could Bryan Mbeumo follow him? It's something we'll keep a track for you here on talkSPORT and on our website too, talksport.com.